President Trump is now open to slashing Medicare and Social Security if he wins re-election in 2020. Now, the New York Times is reporting that this week that with the budget deficit set to surpass $1 trillion, thanks to in large part to Trump, his tax cuts and the trade war with China, that Republicans and right-wing groups are now pressuring him to go after Medicare and Social Security. And the president appears to be willing to do so. Now, some of the people pressuring him are, again, Republicans, for example, like John Barrasso. So now he's Republican from Wyoming, deeply conservative. And he told the Times that his party has discussed cutting Medicare and Social Security with Trump and said the president was open to the idea. Quote, "We brought it up with President Trump, who has talked about it being a second-term project." Because, of course, you don't want to do that during an election because you would lose. Again, Medicare is one of the most popular programs in the country, as well as Social Security. A lot of Trump voters rely on both Medicare and Social Security. You take those away, you promise to cut those, and there goes basically all the support of anyone 65 or older. Done. You're gone. So that is literal political suicide to go after it or to mention that you're going after it during an election. So that's why it's a second-term project, right? So now there's another one, Senator John Thune. Now, he's a Republican from South Dakota. And he said it's going to, quote, take presidential leadership to cut Social Security and Medicare, and it's going to take courage by the Congress to make some hard votes. We can't keep kicking the can down the road. Nothing bugs me more than hearing that phrase. Kicking the can down the road. Really? They only talk about, by the way, the kicking the can when it comes to cutting Social Security and Medicare. They never talk about making some hard votes on oil subsidies or about any sort of corporate welfare or cutting the Pentagon budget. Those are actual hard votes. Now, it's not hard when it comes to, the electorate. No, the electorate's like, yes, we hate corporate welfare. We don't want you giving billions of dollars to these companies, these oil companies, when it comes to subsidies. It's not hard when it comes to the electorate. Those are popular positions. But it's hard when it comes to the donors. And we all know Republicans and corporate Democrats generally listen to their donors more than they listen to anyone else. So that's why the only reason that this is a hard vote, according to Thune and Barrasso, is because, oh shoot, we have voters that actually like these programs, and if we cut it, we're not going to get their votes. So we got to hide it. So now we have to lie to them, gaslight, and tell them, oh no, we're protecting Social Security, we're protecting Medicare. That's exactly what that's the ticket. That's the ticket. So here's the thing, right? There's a lot of things that need to be cut in the budget. And that, again, I mentioned oil subsidies, the military budget, the Pentagon budget, because it doesn't go to the troops. It goes to the defense contractors and, other things like that. But of course, they're not going to do it. Now, Barrasso and Thune also, and these Republicans that are pushing to cut Medicare and Social Security, they also ignore the biggest cost, tax cuts for the rich. The Trump tax cuts gave $1.5 trillion to the wealthiest Americans. 83% of the gains went to the richest people in the country. And as a result, of course, it hasn't increased jobs. We actually had 500,000 fewer jobs last year than was reported. Hasn't boosted the economy. In fact, consumers now carry around even more debt, about $14 trillion in consumer debt. And half of all Americans can't afford a $400 emergency. It's because the tax cuts didn't raise wages. It didn't help people. It helped corporations. And it did not trickle down to the workers. But it did boost the deficit, just like people were saying. Every expert they were asked, every economist said this is going to hit, this is going to boost the deficit. And of course, the Republican response to that is, no, it's not. They're going to pay for themselves. And then when it's clear that they don't, as we found out during the Bush years, and once again found out during the Trump years, that it doesn't help, that it doesn't pay for itself, that it creates a giant deficit. Oh, look at that big deficit. I guess we're just going to have to cut Medicare and Social Security. Oops. We didn't see that one coming. Old people, poor people, disabled people, I guess you're just going to have to suffer. Sorry. Our billionaires deserve a tax cut. Ugh. Now, according to the Washington Post, Trump has already instructed aides, by the way, to prepare for sweeping budget cuts if he wins a second term in the White House. And Trump's advisors say that he will be better positioned to crack down on spending and shrink or eliminate certain agencies after next year, particularly if Republicans regain control of the House of Representatives. This was in a Washington Post report last month. So he's been wanting to, this isn't a new idea. He's been trying to cut Medicare and Social Security for quite some time. Now, I know if you're a MAGA guy, this might be news to you, or you'll probably call it fake news. But here's the thing. It's not. You can go and you can look in their budget proposals. It says right there, they're going to cut Medicare and Social Security. In fact, in his budget blueprint for fiscal year 2020, Trump called for $845 billion, almost $1 trillion in cuts to Medicare and $25 billion in cuts to Social Security. Now, you can call it fake news however much you want, or you can actually go and read their proposal and see it for your own eyes. I dare you to do so. If you're a Trump supporter, just go and read it. But of course, I doubt you will, because I doubt you care. Anyway, now, here's the thing. Social Security is literally your money, right? It comes out of your paycheck so you can live after you're retired. Donald Trump is saying, you're a sucker. You elected me, and now I'm going to rob you. I'm going to rob you of retirement. And by the way, there's another way that he's trying to weaken Medicare and Social Security, is that he wants to give another payroll tax cut. Now, look, a payroll tax cut does affect the middle class, and it does actually help boost, incomes of people who are in the middle class, who work for a living, right? The problem with that is that it reduces revenue going to Social Security. So now you're weakening Social Security, but you're helping workers temporarily. And so, look, that is one way to help boost the economy, but then you're also, starving that program. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? So I don't know if I would go in that direction, and I would actually more, do actually I would lift the cap on the payroll tax. Now, what does that mean, right? Well, right now you have a payroll tax cap. I forget exactly how much money that is. I think it's somewhere over $100,000, maybe $132,000. Once you pay that, well, that's it. You pay that for the year, and then you don't have to pay any more into the Social Security fund. That tax cap, a millionaire could get past that tax, that cap in what? A couple of months. Somebody who makes a lot of money can get past that cap super easy and not have to pay anything into Social Security for the rest of the year. You remove that cap, and Social Security becomes solvent for the rest of time. It's solvent forever. And again, Medicare is one of the most popular programs in the country. And that's why Republicans give lip service to it while running. But in reality, they can't wait to cut it. Now, Medicare is also more efficient. And yes, it does it not cover everything. No, it doesn't. Unfortunately, you have to have these supplement plans. Now, with an expanded Medicare for everybody, you would actually get rid of private insurance, and it would actually be super cheap, a lot cheaper than what we spend right now in our current system. But see, Republicans, they don't care that we spend all this money. But what they want is they want that money going into private hands. And of course, those private hands will then finance their campaigns. And so it ends up in their pockets. And then after they're done serving in office, they can go work for these insurance companies. So they definitely want to privatize Medicare. And the way you do that is by making massive cuts into Medicare and say, oh, look, it doesn't work. Medicare is terrible. Wouldn't you rather have a private option? Wouldn't you rather go to our friends in the health insurance industry and do business with them instead? And that's the whole purpose. Cutting Medicare and Social Security is all about privatization and handing basically these very important programs over to private corporations. That's what's going on here, right? And this is what you get when you vote for Republicans. If you vote for Donald Trump, you're basically telling him, go ahead and rob me, because as long as you hate who I hate, I'm okay with it. Well, the massive majority of Americans who rely on Social Security and Medicare are not okay with it. But this is who they are, and this is what their real agenda is. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.